This video is sponsored by NordVPN. Use the link on screen and in the description to get a huge discount on a 2-year plan with an additional month free. Stay tuned for more details. The release of the 2 Sonic movies brought with them a wave of new Sonic fans, and it's heartwarming. I remember after the first movie came out, my little cousins were obsessed with them. One of them even told me that when he grows up, he wants to become a scientist so he can turn himself into Sonic. No joke, the dude suckered in for life, I'll tell you what. I think it's a great idea to have something like the Sonic Origins collection to show these new fans where everything began. From my perspective, it's hard not to be a little cynical, especially when fans essentially ported all 4 of these games in widescreen already, with arguably more features than Origins is likely going to have. But I also can't deny that this will be a great gift to my cousins and other new Sonic fans across the world. It's like how I discovered a lot of the classic games through Adventure DX and the Mega Collection. What frustrates me, though, is that this continues a pattern of Sega selectively deciding what specific parts of Sonic's legacy are worth remembering. Did you love Sonic Riders, Sonic Rush, Sonic Battle, Sonic Advance? Did you want these new fans to experience these too? Well, tough luck, I guess. I think Sonic Advance gets me in particular because I've always seen these games as worthy successors to the classics, games that attempted to carry on their legacy. Is it truly fair to simply leave these games behind in favor of yet another classic collection? I suppose I just wanted to spread a bit of the love today, and shine a light on a flawed, yet ambitious trilogy that I can't help but admire.
That's right, baby, we're doing all 3 games in one.
Where Mario was content to simply remake its classic 2D titles for the GBA, Sonic took a more interesting approach. Dimps decided to take direct gameplay inspiration from the classics, adding onto them with a more modern, adventure-esque flair. Sonic might still have the insta-shield, and he'll still gain speed running down slopes, but now he can also grind on rails and more closely resembles Yuji Uekawa's artwork. It's a modern reimagining of the classic titles. It's impressive to me just how perfectly the feel of the classics was captured here. You can still make ridiculous jumps with enough speed and momentum, allowing Sonic and company to reach previously inaccessible heights. Rolling down hills carries the exact same thrill it always has. The level design takes after 3 and Knuckles in its expansiveness, with a few more challenging, contained platforming sections. Neo Green Hill Zone starts small, a few upper paths with some secrets, but a mostly straightforward jaunt from start to finish. Even here, there are tons of secrets to find spread across the level, meaning it'll take a few runs to see everything. In Act 2, sticking to the top path will reward Sonic with item boxes and a grind rail to reach the Eggman boss fight with style and finesse, whereas sticking to the lower path will see Sonic obscured by the underbrush, jogging out with much less fanfare. These levels establish that while it isn't necessary to win, there's always a higher, cooler path afforded to skilled players that'll make you feel more in tune with Sonic's freeform spirit. Except, these levels aren't just built for Sonic. You can also play as Tails, Knuckles, and Amy. Tails and Knuckles function mostly the same, with flight and climbing respectively. Amy can attack with her Pico Pico hammer, allowing her to easily dispatch enemies, giving her a lot of airtime when chaining them together. The added attack range of her hammer also makes her the ideal choice for most of the boss fights. She can also use the hammer to whack springs, which will send her much farther than the other characters. It's incredibly satisfying, though the trade-off is that she can't turn into a ball. Each of the 4 characters have something of their own to bring to these levels, and even a few exclusive secrets. Ice Mountain Act 2 is one of my favorite levels in the game, so let's use it as an example. Sonic is all about looking cool and minimizing failure. This level's gimmick is similar to Aquatic Ruin, where you can avoid the water entirely by sticking to the top path. Failure to maintain that path will see Sonic plummeting into the water, where he is severely neutered and usually just stuck. It feels especially good when the only bit of water you touch is at the very end, where the boss fight takes place. Tails, of course, can fly, so there's not a lot that phases him. Given that he can also do this underwater, it's a pretty easy ride here, but it also doesn't feel all that satisfying. He is very useful at finding all the secrets, specifically the special bumper that leads to the special stage. He simply won't be finishing as fast or as stylishly as Sonic. Knuckles can swim on the surface of the water, but only for a limited time, at which point he sinks to the bottom. Given he can climb, though, it's only a matter of time before you're out. Knuckles is all about getting to the top path and gliding for speed. You explore for secrets, sure, but it is a little harder to get him where he needs to go since he can only glide. More of a mix between Sonic and Tails. Amy can use any of the springs to her advantage to get massive airtime and reach heights Sonic can only dream of, but she also can't blitz past enemies the same way, so you have to plan your route a little more carefully. As you'd imagine, the boss is the capstone to this. Sonic really struggles, Knuckles is a bit better, Tails is a bit better, and you don't even have to really think when you're Amy. Of course, like 3 and Knuckles, there's a lot of crossover here. They all control more or less the same, so it comes down to how their distinct abilities alter the feel of their playstyles. Sonic is the coolest, but also the hardest. Tails is the easiest, Knuckles is a bit of a mix of the two, and Amy has a more strategic role. They all bring something of their own, a unique way of viewing certain enemies and obstacles. It helps to inform the kind of characters they are, and what tools they use to combat the various threats Eggman sends their way. I think it's a near-perfect way to continue what 3 and K established for new playable characters. Amy, in particular, is surprisingly standout given her drawbacks, and feels like such a mainstay that it still kinda bothers me she wasn't included in Sonic Mania. Though there is a true ending, it is also cool that you can essentially play as any of these 4 and nothing fundamentally changes. If you want Amy to be the hero of this story, she can be, and that's awesome. Maybe it isn't doing anything exciting, there aren't any neat level transitions, nor is there much of a story going on. The level themes feel kinda generic, though I also see the first advance as a bit of an ode to the classics. Neo Green Hill Zone starts on the beach, before transitioning to the look we're more used to via the roadway. There's some thick forested areas near the end of Act 2, and a bridge where you fight the boss that takes you into Secret Base Zone. It feels like more of a crossover between Green Hill and Emerald Hill. Casino Paradise Zone takes on the appearance of an amusement park, with the occasional pinball element to spruce things up. Ice Mountain Zone is pretty similar to Ice Cap, except it's also the game's water level, and you can see a bit of green poking out from the trees. Perhaps it's a bit derivative overall, but I think it works well enough when it's pulling from all the classics as inspiration. Plus, the new levels, like Secret Base Zone and Egg Rocket, are genuinely cool. Secret Base centers around a lot of pulley gimmicks, trying to stay on the top path by timing your jumps well. I love the steam jetting out of the pipes and the darker color palette. This is a claustrophobic, mysterious place to explore. I really appreciate the return to Angel Island, taking some inspiration from Marble Garden and a bit of Sky Sanctuary. In an undisclosed section of the island we presumably have yet to explore. Lots of stone pillars and stairways. It often feels larger than life, and it's cute that you fight a robo version of Knuckles here. Every character's reaction to him is different too. It's neat. I also think having the final zone, Egg Rocket, literally take off from Angel Island is a great symbolic gesture, a passing of the torch, if you will. It's fitting that Egg Rocket is one of the coolest and most original ideas for a level in the series. You start on the bottom of the rocket, with the timer ticking down instead of up. The concept is simple. You need to make your way to the top while the rocket is making its way into space. Parts of the rocket break off as you exit the atmosphere, and those segments serve as organic checkpoints that reset your countdown timer. You essentially run in and out of the rocket in the hopes of making it to the top as fast as you can. No matter what character you play, it's a blast. There are multiple paths, but they're pointed upward, and you've got to make sure none of them boot you back down to where you started. Eggman is devious like that. After you fly through the last pipe, you're firmly in new territory. There's no going back. It's a laser light show up here. You get flung around every which way. Not even gravity is sacred anymore. You end it where things began, fighting the first bosses from Sonic 1 and 2, but you're so far above that now. We've come a long way, and we're ready for something new. The regular final boss is, frankly, nothing to write home about, but the supersonic final boss, that's pretty dope. You chase Eggman to the moon as he desperately attempts to flee, trapping you in little orbs, so hopefully your ring energy runs out. You have to time your boosts so you destroy the capsules and rings pop out. He fires lasers onto the surface of the moon, causing chunks of it to fly out and hit you. The visual of the planet in the background is just amazing. I love this final fight. And really, none of this is exceptional. It's Dimps' first real showing besides Pocket Adventure, and to expect them to rival or even exceed the best of the classics on their first attempt is perhaps a bit foolish. Advance didn't need to surpass the classics, it simply needed to establish a foothold to introduce the classic style to a new audience and take the reins from there. Advance 2 and 3 are much more of their own beast, so I think it was a good idea to start small and work their way up. Sorta like a new age Sonic 1, You can fully complete it in an afternoon, and at its peak, it really does resemble what made the classic so good in the first place. Before we move to Advance 2, I'd like to tell you about NordVPN. Using NordVPN, you can completely eliminate the notion of internet regional barriers. As far as your internet connection is concerned, you can live in Canada, the UK, Australia, anywhere you want. You can bypass the regional restrictions of your favorite streaming sites, or even just make it easier to access websites in another language. Best of all, there is a strict no-logging policy. NordVPN will not track or collect your private data. They simply provide the means for you to free yourself from region restrictions. And now, thanks to a feature called Threat Protection, you can even use it to protect yourself against malware-ridden files and malicious advertisements while surfing the web. So, if you ever wanted a VPN that can block ads and protect your device from external threats, do I have a deal for you? You can get a huge discount on a 2-year plan right now if you head over to nordvpn.com/KingK using the code KingK to get an additional month free. If you decide it isn't for you, Nord has a risk-free 30-day money-back guarantee. Again, if you want to take advantage of this deal, head to the link in the description and use the code KingK for a huge discount on a 2-year plan. I have a confession to make. I am really not fond of Advance 2. It has its moments, but it also tends to drive me up a wall in its worst ones. However, I still firmly believe that it deserves to be remembered, and actually think it might be the strongest case as to why these games could benefit so much from being remastered. Advance 2 is one of the fastest games in the series. The levels are longer than they are tall. There's less of a focus on methodical platforming, and more of a focus on barreling down slopes, timing your jumps and tricks, and avoiding enemies along the way. For those that have played them, it feels like the precursor to the boost format. Achieving top speed causes the character to start boosting, where they're running so fast they leave after images behind them. If you can keep your momentum up, you can maintain that boost, an immensely satisfying prospect. The right bumper now lets you do a trick based on which direction you push, and they're slightly different for each character. Given that all of them are barreling through these levels, the tricks offer up more of a distinction than their unique abilities do most of the time. For instance, Sonic's forward dash sees him spinning in circles, meaning he can kill enemies while doing it, whereas everyone else simply gets a boost forward. Knuckles' forward dash gives you a lot of distance, and he rolls into a ball afterward, meaning it's easier to avoid getting blindsided by enemies. If you need to get to the ground quickly, you can do a downwards trick. Sonic uses his bounce bracelet, and Knuckles uses his drill dive. A nice touch. You can also get extra height with the upwards trick, and avoid enemies or obstacles with the backwards trick. These tricks are insanely fun to pull off after a spring or ramp, and are sometimes necessary to nab secrets. It's all about using the correct tricks at the correct times. Every character is a little more uniform this time, since the focus is squarely on maintaining momentum. Everyone can interact with every level gimmick, and their abilities feel like more of a bonus. Tails can fly and Knuckles can climb up walls, but it feels extra crappy in this game, where the alternative is to break the sound barrier, and you'll probably want to be doing that more often than not. This kinda makes sense, because more than ever before, trial and error is at the forefront. You're meant to play these levels over and over, learn their ins and outs, so you can perfect your run. For many people, this is exactly what they want out of Sonic, and I'm inclined to agree. The moments where Advance 2 works, when you enter that addicting flow state, weaving in and out of the obstacles, jumping at just the right times to make it through that air hoop and maintain the upper pathway. The heights of Advance 2 are colossal, but the pits are bottomless. Your first several runs are going to feel bad. There's just no getting around it. You're moving so fast that the GBA screen can't handle it sometimes. You'll careen into bottomless pits you could barely see, and enemies that near instantly pop up and punish you if you're not curled into a ball. It's probably why they had to give Amy that ability, because she would just suck without it in these levels. Again, due to the screen size, flying off a ramp feels like a leap of faith, since you have, at most, 0.3 seconds to react accordingly by pulling out the correct trick. If you don't, you are immediately punished, and it can be incredibly frustrating. It's a game where you clearly have to play it many times to get the hang of its rhythm, and I'm pretty willing to do that for games like Unleashed or Generations, when I can almost always see what's ahead of me. Here, though, the screen size makes me feel like I'm constantly lost in these gigantic levels, like I never truly know where I am. You can learn these levels, but it takes far longer to do so. Thing is, I largely think they're well designed, barring the occasional jerkish enemy placement or bottomless pit, which was also a feature of the classics from time to time. These levels are built well for this type of rote memorization and reaction timing. I love that the slides in Ice Paradise train you to start jumping off of them before they end. Most of the time, the levels do a good job showing you stuff like this in a safe environment before punishing you too severely. Techno Base has a section where you're quickly placed onto a falling platform with just enough time to jump off. You start to expect that the level will probably play with this concept. There are a ton of great level gimmicks here that fit with the speedy vibe of the game. Music Plant is an absolute delight in this regard. You can bounce off of note spheres to reach higher paths, there are flutes at the bottom that slowly lift you into the air, usually meant to punish you for bad play. You can bounce off xylophones with each bumper producing a unique sound and sending you farther into the air. The wall bumpers are piano keys, you get shot through trombone pipes, the badniks include bells that hang from the ceiling, and there are little metronomes on the ground. They didn't need to go this hard, but they did, and it's one of the best levels in Sonic. It feels so unique, yet doesn't betray the game's quicker pace. Music's also a bop. I adore Techno Bass. It's got that cyber theming that I truthfully can't get enough of. It was dope in Shadow and it's dope here. I love how the background lights up and occasionally dims. I love how weird the enemies look. I love the wireframing on the bumpers and obstacles. I think one thing I can say for sure that Advance 2 nails is the theming. From Hot Crater, where the lower you go, the hotter it gets, to Ice Paradise, where you can see a city in the background. Each level is an exciting playground to mess around in. I get why people love Advance 2. When you find that invincibility box hidden somewhere at the top, a reward for playing exceptionally well, and you start blitzing through the level without a care for what might come next, it's peak Sonic the Hedgehog. Unfortunately, even in those moments, there are thoughts lodged in the back of my head. I'll remember that, for some inane reason, you need to get all 7 emeralds as every single character to unlock Amy, and that the emeralds in this game are the worst to collect in any Sonic game, bar none. In a game about blitzing through levels, maintaining top speed, and even being pseudo-ranked at the end based on how fast you're going, it is rich that they've hidden 7 rings throughout the level you need to pick up to even enter the special stage at the end. Some of those rings, by the way, force you to go backwards sometimes. In Advance 1, there were 7 special bumpers corresponding to each of the 7 emeralds hidden throughout the levels. You find the spring, you enter the special stage, plain and simple. The emeralds were also shared between the 4 characters, so if you missed it as Sonic, you could come back as Tails, Knuckles, or Amy to pick up whatever you missed. In Advance 2, for some ungodly reason, you must collect them as Sonic in order to unlock the Supersonic final boss. Even once you're in the special stages, they're piss easy, yet they make you stay in there for like 2 whole minutes even when you've already won. And one of the reasons I want a remaster for this game so badly is that it has the potential to fill in those ultra frustrating pitfalls, to widen the screen space, to make it so you only need a few special rings instead of all 7, or even just to add cool little extras, like letting you go super in the actual levels, like you can in the Sonic 1 re-release. Because despite how much I personally don't feel like playing this game again, and running into this nightmare of a boss twice, because they for some reason make you fight every boss at the end right before the actual final boss, which you have to redo if you game over, very possible since these games only cap at 9 lives for some fucking reason. Oh, I swear, the title of this video isn't a lie. These games do deserve to be remembered, and they deserve to be remembered well. Advance 2 has the potential to be anyone's new favorite Sonic game, and I think we ought to give them that chance. Just because it doesn't entirely work for me doesn't mean it won't work for others. It's Dimps' first real stab at doing something all their own with Sonic, and it arguably inspired the boost formula before Rush codified it. It even tries to have a story, minimal as it might be. I appreciate that they continue the trend of adding new playable characters, this time in the form of Cream the Rabbit, who is currently criminally underrepresented in the games. Tying her mom into the plot and turning it into a bit of a rescue mission is cool. The Supersonic portion captures everything I love about the character. His little glance at Cream, a girl he regarded as unusually polite when he first met her. He's not gonna let something like this stand. And it precedes one of my favorite Supersonic boss fights, where you have to dash into the missiles and redirect them back at Eggman. I also have no words for this ending sequence. Something about it gets to me every time. Though I also love watching Sonic fly down from space having demolished the Egg Utopia. It's pretty iconic. Advance 2 has a ton of style, provided you're willing to put in the time, and as much as I hate playing it in the moment sometimes, I can't help but respect its vision. Have you ever played these 2D Sonic games and wanted to pick which character you have tagging along with you? Well, Advance 3 is the only game that lets you do that. And it's fucking awesome. I don't know how in the hell this feature remains dead and buried on the Game Boy Advance. Probably because shortly after this game's release, the franchise entered a temporal stasis where you could only play as Sonic. Mania tried this with its Encore mode, but that was essentially random and there wasn't much going for it beyond its novelty. Here, your pair determines what abilities you unlock. Sonic and Tails are the classic dynamic duo. You get the new boost mode from Advance 2, you can trick off ramps and the like, but you can also use the new tag action feature to have Tails throw you high into the air or lift you up and fly a short distance. You really feel like these two are best friends because you get to feel their teamwork in action. They're in lockstep. Contrast that with Sonic and Knuckles, who constantly get on each other's nerves and bring out their argumentative sides. Naturally, Sonic loses the cooler head that lets him boost through levels, and instead gains a series of powerful attacks. It's not necessarily that Sonic is gaining or losing abilities per se, it's that the people he's paired with are subconsciously affecting the way he solves problems. In a general sense, anyway. Obviously, some of these changes are just to give each pair a sense of gameplay variety. I do genuinely think, though, that this tag team system helps this adventure to feel a little more personal. I think it's easier to appreciate the bonds between these characters when they're able to pair up and take on challenges together in an entirely unique fashion. Not to mention, the fact that every character is involved at once, rather than every character experiencing a facsimile of the exact same journey, really sells this crew as a group of good friends taking on Eggman together. Like, look at how Amy's animation set changes when she's with Sonic, or how she's so amped to be working with Sonic that she's able to emulate his spin dash where she can't with other characters, or how having Cream as your partner turns Cheese into whoever you're playing as. Super cute. There are 5 characters, meaning 20 possible pairings. I've seen a lot of people say that some of these pairings are bad, some are okay, and some are straight up broken. While that is true to an extent, I think there's a little more going on here than meets the eye. Sure, there are some pairings that are more useful than others inherently. Tails and Knuckles is a pretty horrendous pairing, where Tails loses his flight in favor of a glide, but also can't climb up walls. Knuckles, in general, probably has the worst tag actions of any partner, and it's especially true here where his tag action is to glide, something Tails can now also do. Comparing it to Knuckles and Tails, it's sorta like the inverse. Knuckles gains a little double jump before he starts gliding, which is convenient for walls you normally wouldn't be able to reach. Tails' tag actions are also frankly pretty damn incredible for getting height. However, when you look at the levels on offer, you start to realize that the strength of each pair depends on what level level you're about to tackle. There are speedy levels like Sunset Hill Act 2, where having Sonic as your partner works really well. The top path can only be reached by getting enough speed at the very start of the level. Maintaining that higher pathway feels as great as it ever has, and part of that is because I usually play it with Tails and Sonic. A pretty ideal pairing for the design of the level. Then you get to the first act of Ocean Base, which is a vertical level. Having a pair like Knuckles and Tails works wonders here because you can bypass entire segments and make it to the top in record time. If you don't have the vertical mobility afforded to these characters, you're going to feel it, since the regular path causes you to rocket back and forth at what might feel like a snail's pace before you finally limp your way to the top. And I can totally see this not being someone's cup of tea. A lot of people don't want to overcomplicate things and just want a Sonic game where you can go fast and jump over obstacles. I really do get that. But for me, someone who loves replaying Sonic games, searching every nook and cranny to figure out where all the secrets are and what the coolest path through a level is, this adds an entire separate dimension to that process. And often, there isn't simply one pair that fits a level best, it's usually down to your preference. Sometimes I roll with Sonic and Tails in the speed levels, since I want speed and mobility to make maintaining that higher pathway a little easier. Of course, you could also have Sonic as your partner with anyone else for the added speed, or you can honestly just do whatever you want as long as it feels good and right to you. I could see a lot of people arguing that Knuckles and Tails are the perfect pair for vertical mobility, while still allowing access to gates that can only be broken by power-type attacks. Yet I prefer to use Knuckles and Amy, since Knuckles gains the ability to spin dash while climbing up walls. You can even jump off of them mid-dash to reach even greater heights. Experimenting with these pairs to find your favorites is one of the coolest things about it, and you can't really get it anywhere else in this series. Sure, maybe this means some levels are infested with annoying enemies to give the power-type pairings more value. Maybe this means that you won't always be speeding through levels at Mach 10 and will instead have to platform or think a little more. But I also think it's kinda fitting. This franchise quickly became much more than just Sonic himself, and as a result, the standard for what works in his level design also had to change a bit. It's still about learning the levels, and it's still about clearing them fast and efficiently. You're even given a medal based on your clear time. There are just so many more options now, and the levels need to account for that freedom. I personally love how huge and labyrinthine Cybertrack feels. It's a disorienting, gravity-defying trip of a level where mobility is encouraged more than speed. Twinkle Snow is a lot more straightforward. Get speed, make jumps, try to stay on the top path to avoid the water. Chaos Angel manages to be difficult no matter what pair you use because it mixes the two approaches. While you're inside, it's more about speed and pathway selection, whereas when you transition outside, there are very few platforms and it's more about strict platforming. You could go in with a more mobile combo, or you could go in with a speedy one. You'll struggle either way because it's the final zone. I suppose it's sorta like the difficulty argument I make in my Pokemon videos. Difficulty in this game is organic. It simply depends, and I think that's really cool. Plus, it's made a lot easier because there are hub worlds now where you can test out character formations and see if you like them. There's an incentive to enter levels multiple times with different pairings because of the Lost Chow too, which unlock the special stages. The bosses still kinda suck though. I do not think they're Dimps' strong suit, sorry to say. I do think they're handled the best here though, mostly for how they tie into the story. Advance 1 and 2 were pretty run-of-the-mill, but Advance 3 comes out of nowhere to expand on some of the ideas from Sonic Battle of all games. Say what you will, the story of Emerald was one that always stuck with me, and to see that reflected in Gemerald is kinda rad. Your fights with him start off pretty tame. He has to run back to Eggman to help operate his mechs. Gradually, however, he evolves. He gains new attacks, he gets even more powerful before he betrays Eggman, his capacity for evolution now spiraling out of control. Question, by the way, does anyone else find it extremely satisfying to roll up to the final boss with Sonic and Knuckles? It just feels like Knuckles should be here, you know? The Master Emerald's in jeopardy. So here, for the supersonic fight, you team up with Eggman to take down his out-of-control robot. A perfect capstone for a mechanic you've been using all game. You know, actually, remaster Sonic Battle 2. The game's not great or anything, but this story deserves to be remembered too. It tore me up as a kid watching Emerald bond with everyone, only to die in a tragic scene that even affected Sonic. It makes his fight against Gemerl feel even more personal. He doesn't want Gemerl to suffer the same fate, and thankfully, he doesn't. That ending where Tails fixes up Gemerl and he now serves as Cream's protector is real wholesome. I almost tear up a little watching Gemerl pat Cream on the head here. As you've probably already gleaned from my tone, this is my favorite Advance game. It's also someone else's least favorite. But really, that's why this trilogy has always felt so special to me. Each game goes in its own direction, adding something to Sonic that wasn't there before. I could see any of these 3 games easily being someone's favorite. That's why, even though I'll never stop getting really angry at Advance 2, this whole trilogy deserves to be remembered. It was a bold, ambitious set of games meant to introduce 2D gameplay to a new audience of fans, and it could be that again in the modern day. Due to legal issues stemming from letting THQ publish the games, or simply an unwillingness to let the classic iconography die, or a fear of letting it be divorced from the very idea of Sonic, the classics are all we seem to get. I'm glad those experiences are so well preserved. It allowed me to finally fall in love with them a few years back. But is that going to happen with Sonic Advance? With Sonic Rush? With Sonic Riders, even? Perhaps I'm splitting hairs. Maybe the classics are all the introduction a new Sonic fan needs. I don't know. Something about that rubs me the wrong way. Because Sonic Advance is fun, it's exciting, it's new, and most of all, it deserves to be remembered.